304s don't just pop out of nowhere. They arise from forces outside of a woman's control. Here's a psychological explanation. I don't claim to be a psychologist, but here's what experience has taught me. There are women whose behavior appears erratic to the untrained eye, but erratic conduct is rarely the result of spontaneity. It is the residue of earlier forces acting upon a personality long before adulthood gave it shape. When society calls a woman chaotic, promiscuous, impulsive, or unstable, it reveals its own inability to read human motives beneath the surface. Human behavior is an accumulation of conditioning, not a constellation of random choices. In every case, there is an internal logic hidden behind the outward disorder. Women who develop a pattern of hypersexuality, emotional volatility, or self-displacement are responding to early imbalances in attachment and power. When affection is intermittent, the nervous system learns to expect inconsistency. When praise replaces genuine connection, the psyche learns to perform instead of attach. When early authority figures betray trust, the instinctive conclusion is that closeness is dangerous. Adults simply repeat the strategies that once allowed them to endure emotional unpredictability. You see the symptoms. You rarely see the architecture beneath them. A woman conditioned by emotional scarcity will pursue intensity over stability because her internal barometer doesn't read calm as safety. Calm feels foreign. Calm often feels like abandonment. Only heightened emotion, desire, pursuit, conflict, registers as connection. The brain equates intensity with aliveness. This is not pathology, it is conditioning. It is the inevitable result of an early environment in which stability was either absent or deceptive. Others grow into adulthood believing their worth exists externally. If her value was acknowledged only when she pleased others, she will continue to seek confirmation from outside sources. Attention becomes the only metric that calms her internal uncertainty. The modern world calls this low self-esteem, a superficial term that ignores the deeper mechanism. She is outsourcing identity because she never developed an internal one. This produces a relentless pursuit of validation through sexuality, charm, performance, or constant romantic rotation. She is not seeking pleasure, she is seeking evidence she exists. There is another group driven by a different configuration. They use their sexuality not as expression, but as leverage. When a girl learns early that power comes not from emotional connection, but from control, she uses the one asset consistently recognized by others, her desirability. Over time, she disconnects the body from the self. Sex becomes an instrument rather than an experience. This detachment gives her a sense of command over situations where she otherwise feels powerless. Her behavior is calculated, not careless. Her detachment is strategic, not spontaneous. What looks like promiscuity is often simply the weaponization of what the world taught her people want most from her. The pattern accelerates in environments where emotional literacy is non-existent. Without tools for processing fear, attraction, rejection, or desire, she defaults to strategies that require no introspection: distraction, seduction, impulsive connection, impulsive withdrawal. People mistake this for a free spirit. In reality, it's avoidance dressed as liberation. A woman like this is often skilled at reading others. Emotional instability forces a child to become hyper-aware, scanning for mood shifts, hidden motives, or inconsistencies in behavior. This develops a form of intuition that becomes a sharp instrument in adulthood. She can detect interest, weakness, insecurity, manipulation, or indifference with remarkable speed. But this sensitivity does not translate into stability. It merely gives her the ability to navigate unpredictable environments without collapsing. Her relationships reflect the instability of her inner world. She may idealize quickly, then lose interest abruptly. She may attach intensely, then vanish without explanation. She may demand affection, then recoil from it. None of this is random. Early emotional deprivation creates an internal conflict. She desires closeness, but distrusts it. She wants attention, but despises dependence. She seeks connection, but fears being known. These contradictions form a loop that repeats until she becomes conscious of the machinery driving her behavior, and most never do. The psychology behind her sexual behavior is equally predictable. When sex becomes detached from emotion early in life, whether through trauma, observation, or imitation, the adult version experiences intimacy as an action rather than a bond. The world calls her free, but she is not free. Freedom requires self-governance. She is simply governed by impulses she did not choose and does not examine. Sex becomes anesthesia. It becomes currency. It becomes displacement. It becomes a space where emotional presence is optional. This allows her to engage without risk, to participate without revealing anything, to maintain the illusion of control while keeping her psyche untouched. What most people interpret as confidence is rarely confidence. It is compensatory behavior forged to conceal vulnerability. When a woman exaggerates her independence, it is often because dependence was once punished. When she insists she needs no one, it is because needing someone was once humiliating. When she boasts of emotional detachment, it is because attachment was once used against her. Her strongest declarations are usually inversions of her deepest fears. Women shaped by these forces rarely show consistency, because consistency requires a stable internal center. Without it, their emotional life becomes a sequence of reactions rather than choices. They respond to attention the way an addict responds to stimulants, with temporary relief followed by emotional depletion. They respond to rejection with disproportionate intensity because it echoes earlier wounds. They switch partners not to explore, but to avoid the discomfort of stillness. They seek desire because desire feels like evidence. They avoid commitment because commitment exposes the fragile self hiding beneath layers of practiced persona. A common mistake is believing these women are incapable of emotional depth. In truth, they are often overwhelmed by their own depth. Their reactions are not shallow, they are uncontained. Their attachments are not weak, they are disorganized. Their desires are not trivial, they are unfiltered. Depth without structure becomes chaos. Emotion without strategy becomes volatility. Vulnerability without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Some observers imagine that such women eventually settle, heal, or transform. This is wishful thinking, not analysis. Personality is malleable, but not infinitely so. Early wounds create grooves in the psyche. Without significant pressure, these grooves remain. A woman conditioned by emotional volatility may reduce the outward extremity of her behavior, but the underlying structure remains her instincts. Attraction to intensity, fear of stability, craving for validation, never fully disappear. They simply become less visible to observers. Her loyalty, when it appears, is not the result of moral evolution. It is the result of finding a configuration of conditions that do not activate her internal alarms. Even then, the loyalty is precarious. It depends on the presence of emotional equilibrium she cannot consistently maintain. If conflict, uncertainty, or emotional threat arises, she risks reverting to her earlier patterns because those patterns were designed to protect her. There is no romantic transformation here. There is only adaptation. She may learn to contain her impulses, but containment is not resolution. She may remain faithful, but faithfulness does not mean trust. She may become still, but stillness does not indicate inner calm. Human behavior can be controlled, but the forces that created it rarely disappear. The error lies in expecting a narrative arc, a beginning, conflict, and redemptive conclusion. Human psychology does not conform to narrative. It conforms to conditioning, reward, punishment, and survival. These women are not tragedies waiting for catharsis. They are systems responding to stimulus. Their actions are neither moral nor immoral. They are strategic. They are adaptive. They are the product of environments that force them to prioritize defense over connection, performance over authenticity, and immediacy over introspection. Once you understand this, their behavior ceases to be confusing. Their choices, no matter how chaotic, follow a traceable logic. They are not unpredictable. They are predictable with precision, once you read the code. They move according to patterns set long before adulthood granted them the illusion of autonomy. To expect them to behave differently without changing the underlying system is naive. They do not need redemption. They need understanding, not sympathy, accuracy. Human nature is machinery, not poetry. They are simply running the script they were handed.